Right now at 6, loved ones remember a Portland nurse murdered while on vacation in Europe.
Kenzie is a very, very pure-hearted person. It's absolutely senseless.
Plus, the red wave turned back in the Northwest as 2 toss-up congressional races go to the Democrats. Tonight, we hear from the winners.
Then, how an Oregon man convicted for his role in the Capitol riot is arguing Donald Trump's promises of pardons means he shouldn't head to prison.
And a brazen theft from a busy North Portland store.
It was just like, what? Like, this mind-boggling,
How thieves faked their way inside and made off with a Bitcoin machine.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Christine Pedawanich.
And I'm David Mulco. Our top story at 6, a Portland nurse who went missing while on vacation in Hungary has been found dead, and her accused killer has been arrested.
Devin Haskins is following the new developments and is live at Providence St. Vincent. Devin.
Yeah, David, Christine, Kenzie Michalski was a nurse here at Providence St. Vincent, working here since 2021. Her friend tells me she loved the job, loved the pace and intensity of the work here, but also loved to travel outside of work. She was on vacation in Budapest, Hungary earlier this week with some friends, was set to come home earlier this week. But when she didn't check out of her Airbnb and left some of her stuff behind, she was reported missing. At about 9:30 this morning, Portland time, police in Budapest saying they arrested an Irish citizen who had confessed to killing her and then showed police where he hid her body. Crystal Sorenzo grew up with Kenzie in Western New York before moving to Oregon. She says Kenzie always loved to travel.
Very, very adventurous and brave. She has been everywhere. She's been around the world many times over, and she was always wanting more. She had like a real hunger for experience and life.
Providence Portland sent us a statement about Kenzie saying they are deeply saddened by her death and said in part, those who worked with her and knew her best say Kenzie was kind and loving, a great friend and a valued caregiver who lived out our Providence mission and values in her daily life. Her friend also tells me that her family is now back in Hungary to help out. Back to you.
Devin Haskins on the west side this evening. Thank you, Devin. Well, let's turn to elections headlines because Democrats are now projected to win both of the toss-up congressional races in Oregon and Southwest Washington, flipping one seat and retaining another. That is according to the Oregonian.
Earlier today, Janelle Bynum became the projected winner of Oregon's 5th district, defeating Republican incumbent Lori Chavez-DeRemer. And yesterday, Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez became the projected winner in Washington's 3rd, beating Joe Kent. Evan Watson is in Clackamas outside of Bynum's campaign headquarters. Evan, these were a couple tight races.
Yeah, Christine, in the lead up to this election, there was just so much focus on these 2 races in particular. Could these congressional races help shape that balance of power in the U.S. House? Well, as it turns out, Democrats both gained a seat and retained a seat in Bynum and Gluesenkamp-Perez, beating political opponents in rematches.
Just excited to get to work here and keep.
Representative Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez says Southwest Washington is fiercely independent. The Oregonian projects she's now earned re-election as a Democrat in a district that historically leans Republican. She ran a campaign that often focused on the hyper-local issues.
You don't know what lever you're pulling when you're thinking on a global scale. Like, you have to bring the nuance of your local situation to the table. That is how, like, when we all bring what we really understand and those values and perspectives to the table, that's how we get good legislation that works across the country.
Look what happened.
Nationally, it was a tough week for Democrats. Republicans gained the presidency and a majority in the U.S. Senate, with the House majority still to be decided. So does the Gluesenkamp-Perez win show a different path forward for her party?
We need normal people to show up and feel a sense of agency and ownership over the path our country's on. Like, we have got to change who we think is qualified or capable of running and holding offices like this. If we want things to get better, we can't look to politics to fix it.
Janelle Bynum is projected to beat Representative Lori Chavez-DeRemer, winning a swing district and becoming the first black member of Congress from Oregon.
they elected the best person possible to bring their voices forth in Congress.
Bynum also promising to be a bipartisan member of the deeply divided House.
Well, I'm a proven leader and someone who can work across the aisle. I think that's very important. And as I mentioned to you, I don't distinguish the political leanings of my constituents. I just take what they tell me at their word, right?
Both women said they'd prioritize the economy for the working class.
How do we make it easier to build your own home? How do we make it so that you can buy things that are worth having, that were made here in America? That is the long work of building wealth in the middle class and agency in the political process for normal people.
So what about the other candidates in these two races? Republicans Joe Kent in Washington and Representative Lori Chavez-DeRemer in Oregon. We reached out to them early today, but haven't heard anything from them on this front. Janelle Bynum specifically saying that Chavez-DeRemer has not reached out to her or conceded this race in any way. David, Christine.
Evan Watson reporting live from Clackamas this evening. Thank you, Evan. By the way, you can find a full list of election results up right now on KGW.com. And a reminder, we are still watching for calls in 10 out of the 12 Portland City Council seats. Of course, we will keep you updated as more ballots are counted.
In your headlines, a suspect is in custody in connection with at least 9 random stabbings, authorities say, over the last 2 days in Seattle. A warning, the video you're about to see may be disturbing to watch. The latest attack was today in the Chinatown International District, injuring 5 people. You can see in the video to come what appears to be the suspect walk up to a person in a group on the sidewalk and swing their arm back. That's when the other person collapses. 4 of the victims were hospitalized in critical condition. The 5th was treated at the scene.
Portland police are looking for the people who impersonated repair workers and stole a Bitcoin machine from a North Portland business. It happened Wednesday at St. John's Deli and Grocery. The pair said they worked for the Bitcoin company and even had a repair invoice. Employees thought it was legitimate since the machine had issues recently. They watched the suspects unbolt it from the floor, load it onto a truck, and then drive away with about $400 inside. Employees say they didn't realize what had happened until the next day.
We called the company and we were like, hey, what's going on? Like, you know, why is the device not here? And they're like, what are you talking about? We never sent anybody out. So that's where everybody was like shocked.
The Bitcoin company says the same thing recently happened at the Jubit's truck stop in Portland and also in Albany.
This evening, a group gathered at Portland City Hall to speak out against the results of the presidential election. The International Migrants Alliance and International Women's Alliance were among those rallying. They said they plan to resist a second Trump presidency and want to stress the need for real solutions to end poverty, homelessness, and war.
And tonight, Portland police are monitoring scheduled demonstrations in downtown. So far, things seem calm out there, but thanks to more staffing and resources around the election, Portland police say they've also been able to step up efforts to address crime this week. That ranges from issuing citations for reckless driving to illegal gun charges, as well as addressing things like drug activity and theft. Celine?
Christine, things have been great so far. We've been really getting spoiled with the great weather and pretty dry conditions, but that's going to change. So right now, sitting at 54 out there, but here's what's coming. Rain moves in by tomorrow. That cold front makes its way into the area, bringing rain to the coast and inland. We're looking at potentially over a foot of snow in the passes along the Cascades, and we're also seeing that rain expected to last through Wednesday. So we have a couple systems headed our way. We have the first one Saturday morning that takes us through Sunday. By Sunday night, a second one comes in, and this one's going to be stronger. This could potentially bring thunderstorms to the area come Monday. That's when we see the snow fall to around 4,000 feet in the mountain areas. And then we get into Tuesday evening and another system pushes through, bringing even more rain to the area. We could see a couple inches of rain really by the time all this passes through. Still seeing some of that moisture as we get into Friday. So here's what tomorrow looks like. 45 in the morning, a cool start to our morning. We keep it cloudy. By noon, we're seeing upper 40s, and then by 5 p.m. upper 50s. But that's when the light rain starts. We'll talk more about it in your full forecast a little bit later.
Appreciate you keeping us updated, Celine. An Oregon man who stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th asked a judge to delay his sentencing today after the election of Donald Trump.
Investigative reporter Kyle Laboshi is in the newsroom. Kyle, the president-elect has repeatedly said he will pardon those facing charges related to the insurrection.
Well, this case involving an Oregon man does raise an interesting question. What will happen to all those people who are being or have been prosecuted for storming the Capitol on January 6, 2021? Just days after the election of Donald Trump, a January 6 defendant, Jonathan Peter Klein, requested that his sentencing be delayed until after the inauguration. The Pendleton, Oregon man argued in court papers that the Department of Justice, under different leadership, may have different views in the case. In July, Klein and his brother Matthew Klein pleaded guilty to felony and misdemeanor charges stemming from the breach of the U.S. Capitol. Trump has repeatedly said he would pardon those charged in connection with the January 6th insurrection.
We will treat those people from January 6th fairly. We will treat them fairly. And if it requires pardons, we will give them pardons.
Tung Yin, a professor at Lewis and Clark Law School, explains Trump could forego the normally lengthy pardon process and issue a blanket order clearing those involved.
You can imagine he might just come in on day one and say, well, first thing I'm doing is I'm just deciding by executive order pardon for anybody involved in any January 6th crime without going through any of that review process. He could do that, and that would be very easy for him to do.
Klein was scheduled to be sentenced next week. The judge did agree to push back sentencing just 2 weeks because the prosecutor went on an unexpected leave. Now, Jonathan Peter Klein and his brother Matthew are expected to be sentenced in Washington, D.C. on December 2nd.
Yeah, I know you'll be keeping an eye on it. Thanks so much, Kyle. Okay, this is just into the KGW newsroom. Former longtime radio voice of the Blazers, Brian Wheeler, has died.
Wheeler, known as Wheels to fans, took over as the Rip City radio play-by-play announcer back in 1998, filling the huge shoes of the legendary Bill Schonely. He was on the mic through the Jail Blazers era and later the Brandon Roy years, as well as the rise of Dame Time, with memorable calls of both playoff buzzer beaters over the Rockets and Thunder. Wheeler stepped away from the microphone in 2019 for health reasons and had reportedly been battling an extended illness for several years. Brian Wheeler was 62 years old.
A loss for Rip City there. Well, straight ahead.